Oh, wow. Next on my screen, it says Kate BB, but I happen to know, because I know her personally, that Hilary has come to read us from her novel, which is entirely about the sacred nature of water. So this is going to be super cool. Hilary, welcome.
Well, thank you. I've never Zoomed before, so this is all a magical experience. And my friend Kate, who you've just been away with singing, Lynn Lewis, I couldn't do it without her. So here we are. How does that look? Back to front to back. It's something I wrote about 30 years ago. I'm now in my 80s, so yes, and it was about climate change and water, of course, and nobody was really very interested. So it got put in a drawer, and I'd taken on a few acres at this time for a woodland project, and I was off grid. And when about the third or fourth winter came along, and I thought I was dying, my American friend in Upper New York State invited me for a shared creative 3 months together in her log cabin in Upper New York State with the snows about this level. It was very, very beautiful. And until one got cabin bound, we both got to work. And so this was when this got written. And then the crofting came to an end about 3 years ago when I put a finger on the map and wound up in Rosemarkie, across the fields from my friend Kate. And it was a last minute take of a property on a wee council estate, which turns out to be absolutely adorable. And in the crescent of this road was somebody called Elizabeth Sutherland, who is a very well-known literary lady and very well published. So in a moment of gay abandon, I got the old text out the drawer and I gave it to Elizabeth, and she had a read. And in her wonderful 95-year-old brilliant mind, she waved the text in the air and said, "Hilary, this needs out now." So thanks to my team, Kate, her friend, Graham, my American friend, Sally, who did the artwork for the book. Is anybody else involved? No, I think just us. We put it together. So there are 4 completely separate stories that run side by side. And this confuses people because it's not a kind of literal progression until we get about halfway through the book, when some of the paths start to cross. And there's a family in it. And the family, when you read this, you think that, you know, it's just a novel. But in actual fact, the family were true. And I met them 50 years ago in Forest Row, Sussex. They were part of the Steiner community. And husband was Iranian, wife was Welsh, and they had 3 children. And they'd been told, he was clairvoyant, that in the future there would be fresh water problems, and they were to sell up and leave the community, which was a very big ask for them, and go and find out where they would be safe, because they were asked to set up a community that would be fully functioning when all other systems started to collapse around them. And they were given clues. And I thought, I've no idea where they wound up, but I thought it was a wonderful story that one day I might tell. So it's one of the stories in here, and I have rewoven it, of course. And he's not a hero, he's more an anti-hero. We meet Saul Braid, and he's one of these characters. He's a young male, and he's one of these characters who you would say was on the spectrum. He's very brilliant, He's looked up to by the young peers around him, but they're kind of frightened of him. They know he has a very big job somewhere, which he's totally quiet about, because he works for the big multinational company, one of the big brains. But he has one thing in his favor: can he dance? Then there are another couple, Beth and Raymond, and they're also employed by the company, but they, in a moment of gay abandon, produce a child. And this child opens up their emotional lives, and within this huge company, they're not allowed emotional lives because it interferes with their focus on their needs. And then there are the elders, and it's the elders I'll share a bit with you. But this is what Elizabeth wrote about the book. What is Earth's greatest treasure? It has to be water. Dances in the Sand is a story about the theft of all worldwide sources of fresh water by a powerful multinational company. The purest water still to be found on Earth is protected by the singing water people who inhabit the remotest part of our planet. They live simply and contentedly by the rules of the natural world. Sir Edmund Crusk and his minions, determined to control the world, plan to steal this precious and final source. How one ancient tribe and a handful of ordinary folk and their children deal with this disaster makes this book a good read, but also a salutary allegory for our times. Enough. So I'm not going to read any of the pieces of the stories other than introduce you to the singing water people and the elders. So here's the beginning of little pieces from the first chapter. Ready? Where the earth gives way to the shifting sands and the tides turn slowly, singing their songs in the salty distance, there lived an ancient people strong in spirit. The earth provided their every need, whilst each night they poured their prayers into the dancing sands. As the sun slipped down behind the horizon, the people wearing their special robes gathered to dance their end of the day dances. Slowly and carefully, they carved their steps to the freshly prepared sand. These steps have been taught to them detail by careful detail, handed down from generation to generation back to the all-knowing, all-seeing ancestor. Accompanied by the distant tidal songs, the dance advanced and retreated, swayed and turned, it bowed and surged. It spoke of their lives at the edge of the shifting sands and their need to dance their prayers into this ever-changing world. The dance reminded them of all that was constant: the summer and winter sun, full moon, new moon, the flourish of spring, the flaming of autumn, birth and death, arriving and departing. The dance held them safely, it completed every day and brought the night in sweetly. When the dance came to its stillness and the dancers left the space in silence, their patterns carved clear and large in the sand, then the sand sweepers came with their rakes and brooms to sweep the dancing space clear. They would rake in the patterns of the day, how the winds had blown and what they had said, how the children had played, which songs the old folk had sung, and that little swirl of laughter in the center. Life moved steadily through the seasons, each day rich, full and complete. Then one morning, a shout came up from the shifting sands and the sound of running feet. Come quickly, cried the voice. The people came tumbling out of their homes with their sandals half strapped to their feet and their wraps flung randomly over one shoulder. They followed the crying man to the shifting sands and arrived at their dancing space. A great cry went up from the people as they saw a strangely carved dance, fresh and curious, imprinted on their sacred ground. This ground held every detail of their lives, their history, and their soul. They were horrified, frightened, and angry. Nothing like this had ever disturbed their lives before. No matter how carefully they looked, They could not understand the steps, the rhythms, nor the messages encoded. "Rake it over," cried the elders. The sweepers and the rakers immediately ran for their tools to remove the alien prints and re-establish their own grace. Months went by and life returned to normal. No more strange steps appearing in the dancing space. Then one morning, the shout went up again, come quickly, everyone. The strange patterns have appeared again." The people, their hearts sinking, came running. Look as they might, they still could not make any sense of the strange new script emblazoned in their midst. Gone was the language of the wind, the patterns of childhood. Gone were the songs of the old folk and the skirl of laughter at the center. The alien angularity of the script etched a strange new fear into their hearts. Dawn came. The sun made the sign of the blazing arrow as it had always done before cresting the horizon. The elders made their way to their meeting space, the space used through countless generations to argue and resolve all matters pertaining to the integrity of their lives together. They gathered in their circle and raged in age like some timeless clock. They sat for some time in a powerful silence, half of their being in the present moment, and the other half still in the dream time, full of what they had seen. First to speak, aged and ageless, was the eldest, with his eyes still as sharp as an eagle. In a language completely unadorned, he said, "I saw the sacred circle where we had danced our prayers for as long as the world has existed, engulfed in a spiral of sand that rose and rose until a mere speck in the sky. All that was left was a hole in space and darkness." Eyes cast down, a trembling silence gripped the group. Next in age, a thin wisp of a woman with a voice like dissolving mist spoke. "I saw bones in the desert, bones, more bones, great piles of bones, none of which were the seer's bones or the musician's bones, empty bones without voices." Again, silence reigned until the next elder spoke, an old man whose gnarled hands gripped an equally gnarled and beautifully carved stick. The carvings on the stick were familiar. They held the original language which they danced into their most sacred of dances. It was as though he was the original dancing master. He said, "My mouth was dry, my eyes were dry. The fresh waters that graced our daily lives had sunk without trace. The rivers had retreated and taken their songs with them. The rains no longer tumbled from the sky with their perpetual desire to replenish and freshen the earth. Worst of all, I could not remember the rainmaker's dance. The rains failed, and I failed." His hands shook on his stick, and tears fell down his face. "Gone too were the vibrant cycles of the season," said an old man with frost for hair, a spring-sleeved shirt, autumn-woven trousers, and bare summer feet. All the familiar rhythms had gone. There was no green shimmer of spring, pollen-laden and yellow-flowered. The birds no longer journeyed around the earth to sing their spring songs. There was no buried autumn, nor fat deer to feed on the bounty. Confusion reigned until it too had no energy to sustain itself. A man whose body appeared bent and crushed with despair spoke next. "I watched as our enduring peace fractured. We who called ourselves human fought against each other. Villages were looted and the looters were in their turn looted. We clung to dying patches, our prayers no longer answered. We, like the great fish, slowly starved to death." So still and silent were the group that you would have thought that they had turned into an ancient stone circle. The wind sweeping by them for once went unnoticed. The sun danced its circle dance around them, reading its own time from the shadows cast by the rapt stillness. At noon, when there were no shadows cast on the ground, the elders rose and gave thanks to the dream time. With courage in their hearts, they turned to face the day. Woo!
Wow, thank you, Hilary.
The rest is in the language that belongs to every day and to all of us. But the elders keep on popping up. Thank you.